I'm gonna just start recording because I was recording a different thing, but I realized that I was gonna get off topic if I just talk about that one thing and not the other reason why I was even thinking about this. So, long story short, I tuned in for a podcast. I'm not gonna say which one because, it's not really important, but they mentioned something in a more recent video as per recording this that got me thinking about this because they mentioned a simple question: where are all the women in video games? And the answer is that women have always had a space in video games, and we've been trying to tell people this for a decade at this point. It's like it's been so long since Gamergate, but it almost feels like that the conversation never went away. And you have these people who, okay, so to kind of give a backstory on this whole argument, is that during the height of Gamergate, there was a statistic that came up that said, what is the biggest video game market when it comes to money being spent, money being accrued from like revenue sales, biggest audience, and biggest platform? And people started laughing uproariously because the answer to all those questions was women playing Candy Crush on their phones. And they're just like, no. And to be fair, that isn't a good answer because while yes, that is a big draw of the market, when people don't really think of phone games too much when they, at least at the time, no one really thought about phone games as a valid space when it comes to video games. The problem is that as time has gone on, this sort of sentiment has always kind of sat in the background. And it's like, well, why? Why is there a big female dominated space of people who play Candy Crush on their phones? And the answer is not what a lot of people who are in this like male uh male oriented macho space want it to be. And the answer is that women have always liked mentally stimulating games. Like you look at any like female dominated gaming space, and there are a lot of them. And what are they? They are in exactly three genres: puzzle games, RPGs, and point and click adventure games. It is actually kind of interesting how one of the oldest video game uh, mega companies, I believe, is a good way to put it. One of like the big like household names in video games, Sierra, was a company that was headed by a woman who made games that she wanted to play. And she made things like King's Quest and Space Ace and all of these like really cool point and click adventure games that are all mentally stimulating logic puzzles. And then you look into what RPGs fundamentally are. They are combat puzzles where you have an enemy that usually has like one or two weaknesses, and your goal as a player is to figure out which one it is and exploit it. To kind of take Pokemon into it, because Pokemon ends up coming up a lot in female-dominated game spaces, is you have two creatures, one that is water, one that is fire. And you understand the rock, paper, scissors element of the game being that a water-based Pokemon is going to be more effective than a fire-based Pokemon in this matchup. So what do? Do you give an item to the fire Pokemon to make it not as weak to water? Do you swap it out with a grass Pokemon so you will now get that bonus against water? Do you use a move that is hidden inside the move list of the fire-based Pokemon that can hit the uh the water-based Pokemon, and how does your opponent react? This sort of chess match starts happening. And it's why Pokemon is like one of the best RPG series. But it's not just Pokemon. I had a series that I've still to this day try to get off the ground, which is me playing me playing at the same time a classic Final Fantasy game, and then catching that up with Final Fantasy 14, going through that story of trying to 100% in MMO, which I've had to restart that series like 3 times at this point, and 3 of the attempts died in editing, which it does not feel good. But I will say I will attempt to at least try to play another Final Fantasy game at some point. Like I eventually just gave up on it and then just did it in the background instead of actually like doing it on stream at some point. I still have all the footage. I could probably like throw that all into an editor and like try to see what I could do with that. Either way, I bit off track, but when I was originally looking into it, I actually found something that is super fascinating to me, which is the simple question of why does it feel great to play a Final Fantasy game? And I realized that it's because that's a weird way to put it, but one of the appeals of Final Fantasy as a series is that it has so many great female protagonists. Like say what you want about Lightning. I think she's a brilliantly written character. I still think that Yuna is a better protagonist than Tidus ever was. Like she is just so much fundamentally better of a character than he is that it's shocking that they decided to keep him as the protagonist and not just like make the whole story about her. To the point where it's almost funny how he interrupts her story with his own. You then have uh in Final Fantasy 14 you have the Eden raids, which is probably one of the best lesbian romance stories in video gaming. And if anybody says Life is Strange, no, you are wrong. That game is actually not written well. I, as a writer, am telling you, it is not a well-written game. You then have you then have uh Terra and oh man, I'm blanking on her name. It's not Celis. But it is something close. The other female protagonist from 6, which is one of my favorite video games of all time, if you didn't know. Is Final Fantasy 6 being having like one of the best stories in an RPG. And I will argue with people that it is a better Final Fantasy game than 7. And it is really sad that you have these sort of like masculine people who will sit down at a game, boot it up, it will have a female protagonist, and they will immediately just eject out of the game. And this has always been an argument for like the past like decade of people getting all up in arms about female characters in video games, and I just don't get it. Like, I just do not get the hate. It's so weird. Although I will say, the one thing that has been extremely enlightening is the entire argument that I brought up before, which is a female dominated gaming space will more likely than not have a mentally stimulating challenge to it, and masculine dominated games will oftentimes have a more visceral, physical. Catharsis is not the word. Come on, brain. Uh, it will have more of a more like physical sort of element to it. And that has always been far more interesting than anything else in video games. Like just looking into the psychology of this dynamic has always to me been more fascinating than any sort of argument someone could come up about like which games are better, and people getting upset over over this thing, that thing. I have I guess a bet the best way to put it is that I have always enjoyed the calm satisfaction of a mentally stimulating game than something like Call of Duty. Sure, I put a lot of time and effort into 100%ing Black Ops 2 and Ghost when I was younger, but I have always enjoyed the quiet solitude of a puzzle game, of a of the mental challenge of a point and click adventure game. I mostly play RPGs at this point. Like if you put me down in front of an RPG, I will crack that game open and I will enjoy every second of it. Like even if it is boring. Like I still highly regard Final Fantasy 2, even though it's one of the lesser well put together games in the series. I will still like Final Fantasy 2 a lot more than modern Call of Duty. Uh, it's still a few hours. I might as well just upload this as well today, even though I wasn't expecting to. I set another video to upload today, but happy International Women's Day or something. You know, yeah. See all y'all next time. Goodbye.